Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching the big India Today MeToo Roundtable. The one question we hope to focus on over the next 1 hour is, are we seeing a fundamental realignment of gender balances in workspaces? Or will the MeToo India movement just be a lot of sound and fury, not amounting to very much in the end? Let me introduce you to the very impassioned voices joining us on this India Today Editors Roundtable. I'll start with Nafisa Ali. Flanking her, we've got Dilip Cherian, we've got Swati Chaturvedi. She's been writing very passionately on the MeToo movement. Neeti Palta is a well-known stand-up comedian. Ashish Dikshit joins us as an advocate and also for a male perspective. Also with us at this time is Madhu Kishwa, a well-known social activist. And, we've got Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj. She's a documentary filmmaker and activist. I want to go across to Dilip Cherian first. Are we seeing, according to you, a fundamental realignment of gender equations in workforces? Or do you believe that this current slew of MeToo complaints will in the end subside and nothing much will come of it?
I think it's going to change things forever, and it should. As somebody who's run a company where the male dominance already declined in, I would say, about 15 years ago, because women in my profession far outnumber, both in talent and numbers, the men. We've had to do this actually quite a long time ago. And I think that across the workplaces, you're going to see talent come in front and bullying, the kind of sexism that exists today in many workplaces, having to necessarily step aside because times have changed.
Swati, men as of now on the back foot feeling defensive, which is very good. But will this lead to a change in behavior forever, or will things be back to just the way they were a few weeks from now?
I think it's going to be back to what it was in a couple of weeks. But I'll give you one example. The editors or the report journalists named have resigned or have been asked to go on forced leave. We have one huge elephant in the room, which is MJ Akbar. The government, this is the same government which talked about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Narendra Modi in 2014 said, remember Nirbhaya before you vote. They're not even, Sushma Swaraj is a woman and his boss. She's his dotted line boss. They've not said a word. I mean, by now, with the kind of, very credible allegations coming out, the man should have lost his job. He's representing India in an international forum. I think it's appalling. But that's why I don't think anything's going to change. This is just going to be a Twitter storm, which will just,
Neeti Palta, it's the stand-up comedian community that's been hard hit. Given especially the progressive pro-women stances some of these comedians were taking, squared with the reality of the messages they were sending women on the side and their own private actions, pointing the gaze very strongly towards the comedian community. Will this lead to a fundamental change in gender balances, or do you think nothing much will emerge from it?
No, I definitely think there will be a change. In any case, there are more women coming into comedy. We've set up our own internal complaints committee, which is unheard of, I think, in a comedian circle. That being said, I still feel that a lot of the allegations need to be questioned before believed.
Sure. Ashish Dikshit, will we see men behaving themselves properly, better than they have, with more respect, more dignity? Or will we see bosses in positions of power continuing to assert their authority in means which are not necessarily fair?
See, I will expect things to change, but things will only change when we take this thing to conclusion. Only coming to media, making allegations, sitting quietly, waiting for some time, doing nothing, not taking recourse to legal remedies, it will lead us nowhere, because there will be no finality. Who is going to decide what the woman has said is right, or the man is totally innocent? No one is going to decide.
No, but even if that doesn't happen, Madhu Kishwa, and I'll come to that in just a moment, the fact is that men now know that their actions, their words, their messages can lead to public humiliation later. And therefore, the next man who's sending a nasty message, a private message to a woman should therefore be careful that this may be outed someday, and therefore I need to behave responsibly. Do you think things will change?
The outcome of this movement will depend on two things. One, whether we build effective institutional mechanisms for fair play in the workplace. Number two, whether malified charges, those making malified charges, are punished. If it is that you can hit and run and the man is finished but no consequences for you, then there's going to be a terrible backlash, which could include women not being given jobs. To me, that's the big worry.
I agree with that.
A lot of people are already, I know many senior lawyers who stopped employing junior women colleagues. I know many,
You're saying
many
that
corporates.
bosses will think that having a woman colleague may be trouble,
Yes,
so keep her away.
You see, there's no, a mere allegation, whether it's a rape, already the rape law has created havoc. My PIL challenging some of the draconian provisions of the rape law, which allow for easy misuse, are already being heard in the High Court. The point is that if you actually belittle the seriousness of sexual harassment, abuse, sex abuse at workplace, and put down of women, if you belittle it with fake charges overwhelming.
But how do we know any of these charges are fake? You don't know that.
That's
Fake
no,
or
one
correct?
second.
How do you prove it?
That's why I'm saying what we need, even with the existing charges, every institution, including media houses, for example, should organize a public hearing. And when I say public hearing, I don't mean in Talkatora Stadium where a mob comes and beats up people. What I mean is select audiences, you have a panel of retired judges to listen to them. Both sides must be allowed to have
Nafisa,
their
do you
say.
share Madhu Kishwa's concern that organizations and bosses will stop hiring women, or do you believe that this will lead to men behaving responsibly and properly
Both.
as they should?
It'll happen both ways. But I'm saying, of course, there'll be caution. I don't think it's either or.
Sure, Nafisa.
I think the important thing today is a movement like this has made us self-conscious and aware of what needs to be done for progressive India. It's sad that most of the cases that are coming up according to the law are not really going to be addressed in any way. There is going to be no justice for the very brave girls who have raised their voice, or the women. The issue is in workplace, if we cannot allow women to work, that's a tragedy for 50% of
But that's
Indians.
what's good. That's
And
even-
who has the money today to go to
Deepika Narayan
work?
Bharadwaj, will this lead, according to you, to men fundamentally having to change the way they behave, loose comments,
I think, Rahul, I
sexist
would-
jokes? You just need to know that there's a new line that's been drawn, and you need to stay on the right side of the Lakshman Rekha, otherwise you're in exile.
Rahul, I would want to take on from where Madhu ma'am left, but before that, let me tell you, it's not that women don't crack sexist jokes. It's not that women don't crack jokes which are lewd or inappropriate. When you are in friend circle, you have all kind of conversations. But yes, men are afraid. There are men at very senior positions who have refused to meet women in silo or when they are alone. This kind of fear is definitely seeping down, because you just don't know. After so many years, somebody will claim certain and certain thing happened, and then you will not be heard. It is the woman's word that's got to be believed, because we are running campaigns like believe her, believe her, believe her. We do not have any credibility or credence to how the person will prove his innocence. Once an accusation is made, that's being seen as guilt. Today,
But
of
Dilip
course.
Charan, is it possible
And
that this is
from
a bit
Dilip
of an
only, he's saying
overstatement, because
bullying
I
and
don't see
sexism
too
and
many
sexual
women
harassment, they can't be
making a
taken in the
bogus
same
charge.
breath.
You're risking public embarrassment, humiliation. Everybody's going to ask you, "Oh, tumhare saath kya hua?" To say this is easy, but it's not as if women are randomly
I
going to start
totally-
making
absolutely.
fake and frivolous charges.
Hello, Rahul, please allow me to come in at this point. Because what we have witnessed is, I never thought in my India I would have to say this. You know, when we started Manushi, we used to say, break your silence, don't take rape and sexual abuse silently. But in the last many years, you yourself see how many fake rape cases are being filed, live-in relationships being called 3-year-long rape. ऐसा होता है, और so-called marriage promise being taken to the police station, a broken promise for marriage or alleged promise for marriage being listed as a rape case. The point that I'm trying to make is, if something as serious as a rape case can be frivolous, can be malafide, can be used as an instrument of blackmail, extortion. It's being used even by, for example, sex workers. You know, you go for a call, you take the money, you have sex, then you go to the police station and you say, I was raped. No, it's happening. I have any
And
number
while
of
we are-
examples.
And while we are
No,
discussing
Swati
this,
wants to come in.
Rahul,
Come
there's
on.
a very
I'm
recent
sorry.
case,
I'm sorry.
suicide of Dainik Bhaskar editor Kalpesh Yagnik. You know what Saloni Arora told him? I will start a hashtag MeToo campaign against you. Nobody will believe you. I will file a rape case on you. No matter you get acquitted later, your image will be tarnished forever. You give me 5 crore rupees. It is a suicide that happened in August.
Okay?
No, I'm saying
Swati
don't
wants to
shout.
come in, Neeti wants to
Rahul,
come in.
you find an
I'm sorry.
attorney.
Yes.
Be
If they don't
careful.
believe
Be
these
careful.
cases-
The issue is not the genuine victims of rape need to be focused on.
Yes, absolutely.
The genuine victims of sexual harassment
But
are
I think the
plentiful.
balance in the workplace
The
has
balance
changed forever,
is what
and
it
there
is.
is no doubt that I work with about 200 clients. Let me tell you that glass doors, meetings not in silos, all those have become the norm today.
And what's wrong with that? I said?
Nothing wrong with that.
What's wrong with
There is
that?
nothing. It's all good.
What I'm
It's all
saying
very
is,
good.
what I'm saying is, therefore, it's changed for
Already.
the good.
No, but
for the
Madhu
good
Keshwar
forever.
saying, Swati, that this will lead to a surfeit of fake charges, fake dowry charges, fake rape
Disagree.
charges, and
Yeah,
all
I
these
disagree.
charges are not
It's
It's
taken
not
into
just
consideration.
that. It's not just that, Rahul. There is also a chance where the person may not have had any wrong intention when he would have said something, but the other person would have taken
And
an
she's
offense
citing
to
the
that, and
instance
that
of one
becomes
editor who
sexual
committed
harassment.
suicide because he
Rahul,
apparently
can
had
I
fake
also
charges. Yes.
talk about the editors who all of us know who are doing stuff? I mean, MJ Akbar is somebody whose history I think is the
Well
best
known.
kept secret of India.
Absolutely.
So why are we saying that let's already prejudice our minds towards these girls? They're really brave to actually break your silence, to go public on like Vintalanda, for instance. She was raped 19 years ago. To live with that, it is horrific. The kind of stuff that other girls have gone through with MJ Akbar, I think it's horrific. Let's not please, start labeling them and saying that they're making false
See,
allegations.
this is the difficulty.
And let's not,
This person has already
no,
declared
no.
MJ
And
Akbar
let's-
is guilty.
either or.
That someone has made allegations,
Swati,
therefore
you-
MJ Akbar is
you-
guilty,
you-
and she has personal knowledge
No,
of
no.
his conduct.
Can we not
So
conflict?
why should we, get into this kind of,
Let's have an inquiry. Let's have an inquiry.
No, yes, have an inquiry, but
then
how can you
after
say everyone knows his
inquiry, even
conduct,
if the
what
everybody
is
does.
happening,
Everybody
but no one
does.
for last 30 years ever came forward? So, things needs to be balanced.
Okay, Neeti,
And
fine.
you
But
want
the question
this
is
guy to
how?
resign
Ashish,
only
we
because some
have
6
to-
people have
we have
questioned.
to ask,
Allow
are
me
we-
to moderate.
are
One
we-
second.
are we
I don't
saying
like
let's
cacophonous
go
debates.
on.
One second.
Let's
Time
go
out,
on
time
the
out,
due
time
process.
out, please.
Bas, bas.
Allow me to moderate.
Yeah, sure.
Allow me to do it in a sensible fashion so that people benefit from the conversation. This is not a cockfight or a catfight, everybody shouting at the same time. It serves no purpose. Ira Trivedi, is there a fear that men are being held guilty even before trial? That's the point that Ashish makes, that the woman is deemed to be saying something which is true and men are not being given a fair chance to present their case, and therefore in perception they're already deemed guilty regardless of whether they can be proven in a court of law or not.
Yes. But firstly, I want to talk about what the Me Too campaign actually is. It's not about putting men behind bars. It's not about that. It's not about registering cases in police
Absolutely right.
stations or in court. It's not about that. So cases that people are coming forward with 20 years later, 30 years later, there's very few chances that there's going to be evidence for these people to be put under trial. But what the Me Too campaign is all about is for women to tell their stories, number one, and on a macro level to create an environment, to create a better, safer environment for all women to live. And also for men to behave better. That's what the Me Too campaign is all about.
Absolutely.
So we're not trying to put men behind bars. We're not trying to say that this guy has to be proven guilty. It's about a woman telling her story. If all these women have come out against MJ Akbar, they're not saying, hey, take him to jail. It's actually the Congress party which is actually using this in their favor and saying, hey, let's have an inquiry. So this is becoming a separate
To
political
every
fight.
accusation, there is a name there, Rira. You
So,
can't
this
say
is
that
what-
nobody is
so when
asking for
I've been
somebody to
hearing
be
these-
for
I've been hearing all this
every
from-
accusation. There is a
Me
name
Too
there.
campaign
It
is
has to
about
come
this.
out. I think this manthan is very necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
Absolutely.
sexual harassment, exploitation in every field, especially media, politics, there are some
No denial,
professions,
no denial at all.
some
Absolutely.
politics. These are high risk ventures for women. And stories have been known, it's not as if they've not been known. Right from the day I started Manushi in 79, I have been flooded with such cases, except that very few wanted to actually take action. Some who wanted to, we helped them. We even led big campaigns
So,
for them.
this is the second
point
inflection
that
point.
I'm trying to make
We
is
don't
this.
realize that the workplace has changed, but also women's attitude, as Ira said,
Absolutely.
to actually coming out and stating
And
their
creating
viewpoint
The shame has been
on
taken.
social media. The shame has vanished.
Absolutely.
They're
There's no
willing
shame.
to
This
put
is
it all
very,
out there,
very important.
which is very
So I want to
fundamental.
come to the second question I want to put to this panel at the India Today Me Too Roundtable, and the question is this: will there be legal redress? Remember, some of these cases go back 10 years, some of them go back 2 decades.
Very difficult.
Can there be a compelling legal case, and will any of these offenders be brought to justice? Swati Chaturvedi. Niti, to you first.
No, because the burden of
You
proof.
think none of this will lead to any legal
I'm telling you
redress?
why. Because again, what Hira said is absolutely correct. The MeToo campaign internationally is about naming and shaming people who indulge in workplace sexual harassment. There's a very clear, agenda for it. Nobody's saying that, off with their heads, let's, throw all men into jail. The point is to name and shame people and hold them to account. We, the media, supposedly hold power to account, have even held our editors to account. There are two journalists who are actually defending what Akbar did. One of them says that, he didn't make passes at the reporters, he was making passes at the desk. What were you doing? So the very fact that girls can come out and talk about it, Rahul, is so important.
Yeah.
Because the shame has been taken away.
Even though I believe in culpability of MJ Akbar, but people are asking BJP to fire him already. Now, it's as bad
That's
as...
the Congress party.
Wait a minute.
That's not the
I
reason.
just now... Wait.
But this is part
Please
of
let me finish. Let me finish. The point that I'm trying to make is this. If the demand had been that an internal inquiry by the government into the conduct of one of its editors be done within a time frame, and then the government take action appropriate to the inquiry results, then it makes sense. But what we are doing is fire him, and TV studios or Twitter handles cannot become kangaroo courts. No matter how guilty the man appears to be. In some cases, I have personal knowledge of the guilt of the person concerned, but I would still say a fair inquiry, due process.
Ashish Dixit, how legally strong are any of these cases? Will justice be done in a court of law in any of the cases, you think?
Where are the cases? I don't see any cases. It is only allegation in public
No,
domain.
but we're seeing collectives being formed of lawyers. They're working with some of these women who've complained to
except
actually go to
Tanushri,
court.
who has approached police or court of law to file
It's in
any
the
complaint.
works.
No, as of now, I'm talking. It
No,
may
so okay.
happen. It may
Let's
not
assume
happen.
that these cases go to court.
No,
Do you see
even
justice being served?
No, but reason is that all these offences, so-called offences, are time barred already under the IPC and even under the sexual harassment at the workplace.
It is
so
just 3 months,
there is no
right?
remedy. There is no remedy available.
No, but for rape, there's no bar.
For rape, I told you there is no bar. But to see, even in that case, to prove that rape has happened, it would be impossible to prove because there will be no evidence, there will be no corroboration, and only statement of a victim 19 years later will be of no use because the court says delay of each day should be explained. That why you did not report this thing even a
Ira
day's
Trivedi,
delay.
is there then a fear that nothing much will come out of this legally? That there's of course naming and shaming, this public humiliation and embarrassment, but ultimately in the court of law it's not as if women will finally get justice.
Absolutely. Women will not get justice. There is no evidence. There is no evidence. I mean, if Priya Ramani is writing an article in Vogue and she holds the person anonymous and then now many years later comes and says, hey, it was MJ Akbar, there is no proof to this. Putting screenshots on Twitter, that's not proof either. And this is not about legal justice though. So when people come and say, hey, what are you doing to men's reputations? I keep on saying that, hey, listen, it's not about even a woman. What about a woman's reputation? People say, hey, she's a troublemaker. She's coming up and talking about her MeToo stories. And so many of these men have actually said, hey, in private circles, that, oh, these women are troublemakers, they want something from us and all of that.
Exactly.
So I think it's reputational damage
Niti,
or
what's
collateral damage on both sides. And this is not about taking legal action. The Tanushri case is a little bit different. That's spurred off the MeToo campaign, but that is a case of sexual harassment, and she tried to file a complaint 10 years ago, and she's bringing it back now.
No, but the
So
men
that
can
is a
argue,
little bit
Niti Palta, that this should be about taking the case to a legal conclusion. Otherwise, you can name and shame, you can shoot and scoot. But if nothing comes of this legally, then why are we being embarrassed in this fashion?
First of all, I genuinely feel this is not a failed movement, as some very loud lady on the panel last night was saying so, because just the fact that women are feeling empowered enough to step forward, set aside self-doubt and speak their mind and say we have been wronged is huge.
And men are going
That
to be
being
more careful.
said, even in the comedy circuit, if you see, the girl first went to her bosses. She went to her bosses, took the complaint to them when nothing happened, and she could see the boy progressing in life. that was the trigger to set off this avalanche of tweets, which has led to this further avalanche of MeToo in
Well, look
in
at the
India.
Phantom Film example. They actually dissolved the company because clearly there was the girl had a point and they were all aware of it.
No, but critics say that they were, in any case, in the process of dissolving the company. They used
they
this as
were
an
already in
opportunity
the process of
to dissolve the
dissolving
company.
their
Like
company.
for
It's not
example,
because of this.
talking about redressal, I can say, because look, every day these are my friends whose names are being brought out, okay, and we are all split. Genuinely, I'm split. I don't know who to believe, who not to believe anymore. Yet they have a redressal in terms of the complaints committee we've set up, which is going to go.
No, but
legal.
take for example, since you're speaking of comedians, one gentleman says against whom there's a charge at the Banaras Hindu University, Varun Grover, that this never happened, that this is make-believe, that the lady just coined this whole idea that I was doing a
If you
play.
see the statement he set out, it is a step-by-step
Yeah, he explained
addressing
himself.
of
Absolutely.
the
There are a
charges.
lot of
No, but
people
he's been
who will
named
have
and
these
shamed.
step-by-step rebuttals.
but
Neeti,
some won't.
how many men have we heard? Varun
No.
Grover has been heard because he is a feminist guy who is so dear to
He has
everybody.
not been
no,
heard, Deepika.
it's only about Varun that so many, Huma Qureshi has tweeted, so many women are tweeting, please be cautious of false accusations.
Absolutely.
Just because your
No,
dear
but
one
this is
got
an
accused.
interesting
which is
case,
exactly
Swati,
what
because
I'm
here
saying.
you got a
No,
guy
when
who
your
says
person is, when
You
somebody
want,
who,
this never happened. Well, one second.
Rahul, when
Allow
they-
me, I'm the moderator. Last I checked, I'm the moderator. Okay. So here is this interesting case where you've got Varun Grover coming out and saying this incident never happened. I never directed a play of this kind where I'm accused of having molested this lady. Now, when I read that, I'm wondering, was the lady telling the truth? He says the girl doesn't exist. There were 100 people. They'll find one person who comes out and backs what she said. If this happened in public view, somebody surely would back the girl, and nobody's come forward so far.
But that's
So that's the case with Anjali. Exactly, there were 500
That's
people
exactly
on
the
this
question
set.
was
There
to
were
Swati
500 people
Chaturvedi.
on
Nana
this set.
Patekar,
Swati
and there are
Chaturvedi.
eyewitnesses which are telling a very different story.
Swati.
Exactly, Rahul. The point is that there are, even in the West, the whole thing started with New York Times doing a very, very deep investigation. Let's not forget, our first principles here. They did a proper investigation. They verified each account. Now, if you randomly start, having a Twitter firestorm and a storm in a Twitter teacup, I don't think it's going to have any legal
Most of these accounts
implications.
are anonymous any which way. Swati, tell me how many women have named themselves in mentioning these kind of assaults?
Several.
90% of the
Many.
cases that are coming on
Many.
Twitter are anonymous.
Many.
As compared to the anonymous,
No,
as compared to the anonymous.
Many women
more.
have put their names to it.
So to
Many
add
women.
to their point,
Especially
genuinely,
women who are
if
well
the
known.
women
Yeah.
who are
Women
coming
who have
up
a
with fake
reputation
charges
of
are
some
doing
sort,
great
they're putting their
But
disservice.
how do you know they're fake charges?
That is the thing.
How do you know they are correct charges?
I
That's
don't.
the
That's a
fundamental
public
issue.
hearing.
Who is
And then
going to decide
there
it?
has to be
And when you
some
name and
setting.
shame, you not only violate someone's right to life covered and right to
Yeah.
I'll tell you
reputation, you also violate the Sexual Harassment Act,
Rahul.
which says that the identity of the victim as
Me
well as the
Too is
accused has
not-
to be
it's
concealed
not the
till
sexual
the
harassment.
You're
investigation
not
is
getting the
over.
point of Me
But
Too, dude.
the problem is you are simply telling him there are allegations against this guy. He's done
What's
it.
the point of
a social check?
Yes.
Like any company like us does a social check on anyone we're hiring. So now what has happened is that this has come out in the open, and what MeToo is saying is red flag on so and so. Unless
No, but what
the
if that
Twitter
incident
account-
never happened?
Well,
like in the case of
Rahul,
Varun
Rahul,
Grover?
I
What
will
they are
tell
saying
you,
is right.
Dilip,
What if the
so
incident
are you
happened?
going to, no, are
I'm
you
not
going
saying-
to, are you
I'm
going
not
to
saying anything
not
different.
hire a person
You haven't heard
who
me
has
then.
just
I've
been
said-
accused on social media?
No, I'm saying that if you find that the social media handle,
Yeah.
which is accusing him,
Yeah.
has maybe 8 followers and started like a week before, then you know it's a fake handle. So obviously there needs to be not a process of law, but a MeToo process is where you want to change the way you're working. You want to change the way society
But there
is
are
working.
already the
And I think that's
repercussions
good.
and
No,
serious
Dilip, I am not on what
repercussions
is the
and
law.
violence.
Internal
Take a
procedure.
very quick-
You have
Five
internal
women
inquiry.
are
Deepika, I must tell you one second,
Yeah.
with all respect to everything that you want to say, we have to do this one at a time, right?
Yeah,
you
sure,
can't
sure,
have everybody
absolutely.
speaking out of turn. It doesn't make sense. That's not the
Sure,
way
sure,
I run
sure,
debates.
absolutely,
And if you do it again one more time, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Sure,
all right? I hope that's very
absolutely.
clear.
Yeah,
Let's have a sensible debate. Win with the power of your argument,
Yeah.
not with the noise you're seeking to make. I want to introduce our guests once again. I'll start this time from the other side, introducing Ira Trivedi. Flanking her, we've got Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj. Then we've got Madhu Kishwa. Ashish Dikshit is an advocate. Neeti Palta is a stand-up comedian. Although I'm sure she doesn't think any of what's happening right now is funny in the very least. Swati Chaturvedi is a senior journalist. Dilip Cherin and Nafisa Ali. I want to focus in the second part of this roundtable on whether the Me Too conversation and the Me Too movement is now getting mixed up. There are a whole host of other issues like bad breakups, like a date gone bad, like a live-in relationship having gone sour are all coming out. is there now, as a lot of people are beginning to fear, an element of vendetta, an element of vengeance? Nafisa Ali, we're seeing, the men already, a lot of them seem to believe this. A lot of women, we've seen in the panel as well, speaking out about how the Me Too movement could hypothetically start getting misused. Are you concerned?
Not really concerned, because I have, I would say, trust in the social fabric of where we belong. You haven't really touched on the world of cinema, which is also a big problem, and which is where really the issue has come to the fore. And at least people Sinta, for example, have started addressing it, taking it seriously. The same must happen everywhere else. I don't believe that there will be justice to all the old cases, but for God's sake, everyone who is watching and is listening and is reading about this movement, become conscious of behaving better and not
Madhukishwar, a whole host of different issues getting mixed in this river called Me Too.
Not only that, what is my concern is the following. What if men start telling their Me Too stories of how they were offered sexual bribes, how they were stalked, how they were sought to be seduced?
No, but can I counter-argue, Madhukishwar, with all respect, one second. The number of men who are being hounded by women in comparison to the number of women who are being hounded by men would be a minuscule minority.
Please understand, I'm not right now talking of numbers, just as we never thought the numbers of false rape cases would become please.
No, I've seen a lot of people in the newsroom draw this equivalence and say, okay, how many women are sending you photos, etc. But look at the number of men with whom that would happen in comparison to women who are facing harassment.
There are just 500 stories like this from all over India. Let's say it's a minuscule minority. The point that I'm trying to make is, let's keep our minds open, our antenna. How are we going to handle those?
Okay, Ira Trivedi,
that's
respond
all
to
I'm
this.
saying. How
a lot
are
of
we
men
going to
in
handle
private
those?
saying, okay, we can
Then are we going to say this is sign of anti-women behavior? They are naming and shaming women who are rising. I'm saying just be prepared to deal.
So let Ira Trivedi respond to this, because
it's going to be a floodgate open.
I've heard some men discuss that, okay, what if there is a She Too movement? What if some random woman sending you pictures of her on a holiday in a bikini and you start making those public along with the kind of messages that you're getting? Then does this not mean that women are doing the same? So is that a concern, or do you believe, given the sheer number of women being harassed in comparison to the number of men who may receive such unwanted responses, there is simply no comparison?
So I'm going to respond to 2 points to your earlier question about, are we mixing things up with the Me Too campaign? And the reality is, yes, there will be false accusations. There will be people who will take some sort of a personal vendetta and make it public and say, hey, Me Too. All of this will happen, but still it'll happen 1 out of 100 times. The 99 cases will be real. So I do think that it happens in everything. If you look at dowry laws, yes, they are misused.
So
women misuse
you can't
these
take
laws.
the one outlier. You can't take the one outlier and make that out to be the norm. I'm asking Deepika, give her a fair. No, one second. Give her a fair chance to respond now. Is it fair to take the one outlier case where there may be a case of misuse and make it seem as if the credibility of every woman is suspect?
It's not a one in
allow
a
her to speak, please.
The basis of our criminal jurisprudence is innocent until proven guilty. Rahul, we cannot look at this from the point of view of numbers. We have to look at it from the point of justice. Even if it is one life that is shattered and destroyed, we need to discuss that. First of all, it is not 1 out of 100, to be very honest. Right now, the way we are seeing things happening in India, I completely agree with Madhu ma'am. To your initial thing of, is every kind of thing coming here in now as a part of Me Too movement? Of course, please read so many of accounts. I remember Justice Dhingra had said this in my documentary. We are criminalizing behaviors. So now if a man is a little rude and he is not very very sensitive like women are, if he is rude, we could call that sexual assault. If he has broken up with a woman, has not been very nice after a breakup, we are saying that is sexual harassment.
Swati Chaturvedi,
So all
come in
kind
on
of
this,
things
because are different kinds of things getting mixed up?
And
a woman saying, he didn't look at me
Rahul,
proper.
can I please complete, because I haven't completed.
Yes.
I would quote this example over here, and Swati knows this very well. It was a Twitter fight that resulted into a harassment case against BJP rep Tajinder Bagga. Even after he was cleared by the court, Swati goes ahead and writes an article, molester now selected as a BJP spokesperson. So there is never an end for a man who has been accused. Now she can answer.
What was the question?
No, my question is this.
Court acquitted him.
It's court
My
acquitted him.
question is
It was
this,
a Twitter fight that was called a
is the
sexual
Me Too
harassment
movement
case.
now seeing a lot of different issues get mixed up. We saw some women say, oh, I didn't like the way he looked at me. He was talking to my breast, for example. And therefore, I'm uncomfortable and therefore, this is Me Too.
Yeah, I absolutely, completely agree with you. There are going to be maybe hundreds and thousands of those cases. But having said that, I don't think we should start casting doubts on a movement which is empowering women. Let's look at the bigger picture. Let's not, pick one. And some girl has said that I hooked up with him earlier. Now I don't want to, and he piled on. That is not Me Too. So let's not confuse Me Too. Let's not make it into this grotesque, anti-man thing. It's not. It is women sharing, it is women talking, and let's please allow them the dignity of the fact that they're actually sharing something which is extremely painful, which has probably affected them awfully all these years.
This is what I'm concerned about, Dilip Charan, that you pick the one outlier where there may be a potential misuse and you use this to discredit the entire movement.
True.
So instead of women speaking up, claiming their space, finding more equality, you say, oh, dekho isne kya kiya.
I think that we've got to give credibility to the movement first.
Yes.
Second, we've got to also understand what percentages are we talking about. Everybody has a notional percentages.
But nobody knows what the percentages are.
5 out of 100. No,
but you don't know what the percentages
we don't know
are.
what but I'm saying that the courage of people to speak out
has to be applauded.
far more worthy of applause than anything else.
Absolutely.
If it changes society, if it changes, see, when you ask Me Too and things, the fact is that the power equation in this society is very clear. It's a patriarchy which is extremely hierarchical. So at many levels there's patriarchy working.
It's a boys' club.
I think if
It's a boys' club.
And it's about time, to my mind at least, that we shake that boys' club out of its zone of comfort where men realize they have to behave responsibly.
I genuinely feel public memory is really, really short. That's why we have criminals sitting in the parliament. They have cases of sexual harassment, rape, etc. They are MPs. It's a very short-lived this thing.
In fact,
We
just
can
today
just-
I
I just
tweeted
want to
about
come in
Ruchika
here.
Mehrotra case
Just one
and Geetika
second.
Sharma
Now
case. They're
listen, as
not heard
somebody
at all.
who had plenty of Me Too moments, and I remember, for example, when I went to the Vice Chancellor as a student, an MA student, where a professor molested me and then failed me, and I went to the complaints the entire way. All I heard at that time was, no, you are a famous person, you're president of the union, mud will stick to you. I'll never forget those words, being told by very progressive heads of department. But I'm saying don't forget, Manushi has a track record of taking these cases. We were the first ones in Delhi University. We had 2-day strike on a sex abuse and harassment case.
So in the last...
That's the point that I'm trying to make. And to you, Rahul, with humble request, please be prepared for the unexpected and don't call it one outlier case. Just be prepared, because in the case...
Nafisa Ali, you can't monopolize the debate, man. You've spoken first. No, you spoke. With respect, one second. Nafisa Ali, no, I'm the moderator. Nafisa Ali.
It's so important to realize that a Me Too movement is something which has traumatized a soul for years maybe. The Me Too movement is also a way of shutting doors. You see, because when you live with the trauma and the memory and you cannot speak out, it remains as an aggressor. And the minute you can speak it out and people start writing, and perhaps negative or positive, mainly positive, suddenly there is a huge release of
catharsis of sorts.
And I think that is the beauty
In the
of the
last
Me Too
part of this
movement.
broadcast, I want to focus on whether there should be a time limit to complaints. Legally, there is a time limit, but for rape, there isn't. A lot of people debating that, but she woke up 20 years later or 10 years later. Is that even fair? Should there be a time limit? Most men would seem to think that there should be. Niti Palta, what's your view?
I disagree. I mean, they're capturing Nazi generals even now.
Absolutely.
Ashish Dikshit.
See, not only our statute do have a limitation period, even the courts, while dealing with sexual harassment cases, have emphasized that cases where the complaints are made after substantial delay should be looked more suspiciously and more evidence should be sought.
So we had
this is
Alok
a
Nath
legal
on our
position.
channel yesterday, Swati, and he said, no matter what I say right now, I will not be believed. Where was she all this while? Why did she not speak up earlier?
Well, I mean, he also said that I don't know if I raped her or not. I think that's the worst defense of rape I have ever heard in my whole life. first of all, and second of all, if times have changed, if earlier there was, in India at least, because a very patriarchal, very sexist society, women actually carried the shame. If somebody molested you or raped you, you were the one who had the element of shame. If women are empowered enough to talk about it, I don't care if it was 20 years ago. I think we should listen to her, give her that catharsis, and let her speak.
Women are molested everywhere.
Final words from all our guests.
Yes.
Will this ultimately lead to major change, or will all this sound and fury not amount to very much? I'll start with Ina Trivedi. Very quick, 20 seconds, brief words.
I really hope that it does. I think that we are in the beginning of something big, and there's no chance that the Me Too movement is going to stop.
20 seconds.
I think both men and women need to be responsible of their behaviors. If men need to be responsible that they need to behave properly with women, then women also need to be responsible to not delegitimize the movement.
I'm very happy that the lid is off and the can of worms is open. However, I would like us to focus on institutional mechanisms for redressal and safeguards against abuse.
Dikshit, see, it will, if some of these cases are taken to logical conclusion, just making some allegations and thereafter maintaining a quietus will not lead us anywhere. Rather, it will destroy credibility of genuine victims, because people will say, yaar ye to koi bhi allegation laga deta hai, and it is part of life.
I think it already has, with the number of women who've actually become brave enough to step forward. So I think it already has made difference. And to the other ladies who are actually pushing personal vendetta, please don't do disservice to the brave ones who are actually stepping forward.
Swati Chaturvedi.
I think absolutely has, and I think we need to see more action, like we've seen in the media, on people who've been accused, people who've quit and said that, oh, I did something. So I think we need to see just more action on it.
Dilip Sher.
There are three sets of people here: men, women, and society. I think all three will change.
I think, and we all have to become conscious as human beings to be able to not allow such things to happen and to address it immediately. Stop. You will have to learn to stop, curb your drunken ways, your lecherous ways, your dominance.
Okay.
You know, you have to
stop. So you've heard all our panelists. As always, I leave it to you, our viewers, to form your own view on this. But all I wish to say in conclusion is this: for far too long, far too many men have taken way too many liberties which they ought not to have, said things which they ought not to have. The Me Too movement is seeing, to my mind, a fundamental resetting of gender equations, and this is here to stay. Make no mistake about it. If you're a man or a woman, a new Lakshman Rekha is being drawn way above the Lakshman Rekha previously. Bosses, male colleagues will have to behave. If they don't, they run the very serious risk of being publicly embarrassed and humiliated. Whether this amounts to much legally, we don't know just now. But this is a ceiling that's being broken, and I say more power to all the women who are speaking up. To all my guests for joining us on this India Today Me Too Roundtable, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.